Hi, my name's Jeff Halverson, and thanks for coming to my art class. So we're going to be working on drawing really simple objects at first. And our first lesson is going to be essentially on perspective, because we need to put these objects into perspective. So we can look at a drawing like this that I did this morning, and we can see that this ball is in perspective. And then later I'll show you the value scale, how to actually get the darks and lights in. All right, let's get started. So we're going to start our drawing lesson by getting into 1 and 2 point perspective. So let's first write out perspective here. Going to use a marker, but of course you can use charcoal or pastels or chalk or whatever you like. Perspective. I don't know, let's call it 101. So here we have the horizon line. So if you're looking, at the ocean and you're seeing like the line of the ocean against the sky, that would be the horizon line. So we're going to write horizon line. That's what this is right here. Okay, and then we got a vanishing point right here. So let's say we had a road going off in the desert. It would essentially go right here to the vanishing point. Vanishing point. And we can draw our road. So it could be like that. It'd be like this. And if we want to put in some little fencing along the road here, you can go like that. And we put this side here too. And we put a midline in the road. So I'm going to draw that out. 2 point perspective. So here we have the horizon line. Pretty much always start with the horizon line. And we have 1 point, right? It says right here. And we have another vanishing point here. Making sure that you can see all this. Yeah. So anyway, let's say we're drawing a cube, okay? So we're going to be doing these little cubes here, and we want to know like how this is going to fit, okay? So if we look at straight on like this, that's 1 point perspective. But if we look at it kind of at an angle like that, like, let's say there's a road going down this way and a road going down this way, then how do we get that vanishing point? Well, what we do, let's say it's just a little box here at the bottom. So we could draw a little box with one line that goes up this way, and maybe one line that goes up this way. And then we get the little sides to the box. Maybe a side here and a side here, and maybe a side right here. And then we draw the top lines for the box, which would be right here and right here, right? And then we get some sense of a box here. This is not going to be perfect, but anyway, you get some idea of how I did this. Okay, so that's our box. Make sure you can see that. Yep, yeah, you can see it. But let's say this is a building, you know, so we're seeing not just over our top of a box, but actually the roof, we can't see the roof because the roof is above our horizon. So what we would do is we would just simply continue our box up a little higher, and then this would be one side, and then see how like there's actually a line that goes from the top of this roof right here to the horizon line, right? Right, it goes down like that, and then the top of this part of this roof goes like this, and you know, it keeps them going down like that. So we can just put in we can finish up our building like this. And let's say maybe there's another building over this way. You know, I'm just not going to draw the whole thing out, but you get some sense of it. All right, we got a building here. And say we got the road that continues down this way, and the road that continues down this way. And I don't know, like if the sun was coming down this direction, we could have some shadows here. So anyway, you get some sense of it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. That's 2-point perspective. Values, basically. So values, that is darks and lights. Okay, so let's say we have, you know, dark right here. Here we will put a dark. Here we're going to put a mid. We can call it a mid-tone. And here we're going to put in some light stuff. And this makes a difference in terms of, you know, really giving this 3D effect to what we're drawing. I'm going to use first this little charcoal, and then I also have this chalk and a little eraser. The eraser really helps. This one's getting kind of dirty. But anyway, so if I did it in charcoal, this is what it would look like. So it'd be very dark, then it'd be sort of medium, and then light. You know, there's no way of making it lighter other than just, you know, finding some stuff to lighten it up like that. Okay. But if I did it in you know, different medium, this is pastel, then you can see that I get it quite a bit darker. And the mid-tone could actually just be the paper, but I'll just add a little something here. And then we got the chalk. You know, if you want to blend them a little bit, you can. I got a towel here to help blend them. You know, you just scrunch the two together here a little bit. That makes sense? Use a little chalk down here. All right, so that's values. Okay, next is going to be going on to actually drawing our little box. So we're going to be trying to get the darks and lights of this guy right here. All right, I'll show you how we're going to do that. So for drawing the box, we're going to use this little setup. And you can see that there's some areas that are quite dark. For example, around the shadow, right over here, that's dark. Then this is a little bit dark, but it's sort of more of a mid-tone. This is quite light, and the top is actually also quite light. And then this area right here is kind of in between. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so let's draw the box. I'm going to use a marker here, but I don't recommend it for you guys. But this is just to clarify things a bit. So I'm going to put in horizon line. And this is going to be our vanishing point right here. And I'll just draw these guys in real quick. See that there's a line that goes here. If you wanted to kind of see it through the box, you could draw this one, but you don't really need to. But the top of the box, let's draw that one. this one. Okay, so if you get the perspective right, things are going to look much better, like kind of right off the bat. Okay, and then these lines go down here. Now this is actually 2-point perspective. The vanishing point for the left side goes way off to this crazy spot off the paper, but because I got a fairly big piece of paper, I'm able to actually still draw it in. And this side too. And this side also. So you notice that this is kind of squished right here, right? This little area is quite squished. If we drew in this one right through here, it would be quite a bit bigger, right? So as things get closer to the horizon line, the more squished they become, right? So anyway, now let's just put in the darks and the lights. So our light is coming from top here down, and it's making this shadow. So let's just put in the shadow real quick. Okay, I need my tools. We'll just use some chalk for this one. So this is going to be a little bit dark. This is actually not chalk, this is charcoal, but I also have chalk. Right. This side's going to be quite light. And in our setup, actually, the shadow is quite dark. I'm going to take a quick look at what this shadow looks like. It actually kind of goes more up this way. So I'm going to use my eraser. See, because the light is actually kind of coming from the front down. It's actually going zipping down like that. It's not going straight from the side. So that's why there's a line that kind of goes up this way. All right, let's see, the top is pretty light. And let's see, the ground it's on is actually sort of a mid-tone, I think we decided. So if that makes any sense. Get our piece of cloth here again to kind of smooth it all out. You don't have to smooth these things, by the way. You want to just do something like this, where you're just doing little cross hatches. You can do that too. Just to give some sense of where this thing is. Anyway, that's pretty good, I think. And we're going to move on. So our next project is going to be this cylinder here. And one thing that we can notice about the cylinder is that this is obviously the light side, and then the top has got quite a bit of light on it, and then this is the dark side, and then you've got a pretty dark shadow. So the other thing I think that we should think about a little bit is the edge of the box here, and that kind of puts it within a perspective. And we can use this perspective to kind of know like what these ovals are. It's important to pay attention to the ovals. So the more squished, flat the ovals are, the closer they are to the horizon. And then this is going to be a little bit bigger oval. And this obviously, this little cylinder is below the horizon. So we need to start thinking about things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a quick sketch in Magic Marker just so you can quickly see what I'm doing. But then I'll do another one in charcoal, and I think that one will be actually more artistic and good looking. So I'm going to take my horizon line right here, and I'm going to do it marker real quick. That's the horizon line, and I can see that the box it's in is, from my perspective, kind of almost a 45-degree. So there's a line that goes kind of like that. And then there's another line from the other angle that you wouldn't be able to see because it's way over here. And the bottom of the box, from my perspective, kind of goes like that. We're not going to get the exact thing right now. But let's say we want to have this, let's see here. So this is going to be where our cylinder is going to be. So let's say we drew a cube around the cylinder. Well, we could draw the cube somewhat like this, within a certain perspective line. Right here would be another vanishing point, and the cube goes up and down like that. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get a oval that fits here and an oval that fits basically in this top one right here. So you got to make sure, like, one thing about ovals is that they're never really triangular, they're actually oval. But people want to make the edges triangular, which is just sort of a bad habit in some ways. So here's our oval. This one here needs to be fixed a little bit. So it needs to be more up and down. And then this side's going to be dark. Then there's going to be a shadow that goes like that. And there's actually, if we want to be really realistic about things, there's also a shadow that goes up and down like that. So that's the edge of the box there. So we realize that the box's vanishing point kind of cut right through the middle of this from where I'm standing. Kind of, it's really right, oh, well, actually it's not, yeah, it's really kind of on the edge. So that goes at an angle like this. Maybe it's a little further this way. So I got to get my ruler real quick, just because it's going to make things easier. So the box goes like this. And then the box goes up. So kind of what's nice about this kind of ruler is that you can make fairly straight lines that are at 90 degrees and so on and so forth. And then this kind of goes like this. Okay, and now for the actual ovals. Maybe they're a little bit bigger. And we got another oval right down here. The sides of the thing right here. Now, if it helps you, you can actually kind of go right through, right? You don't have to. You can just kind of do it and then erase it, whatever you like. Okay, and make sure that these are not, anyway, yeah. There's a lot of fixing that goes on in these things. Okay, and I like stepping back to be able to see what I'm doing. That's really actually very important. So you go in and then you step back, go in, step back. What I'm seeing is actually that my lines are not exactly straight here. This one here actually needs to go out a little bit more this way. Yeah, it's just not straight up and down. Trying to get that symmetry is important. So we got symmetry here, and we got this one needs to go. Actually, this middle part is more like right about there. So I'm going to write symmetry here because that's important. Symmetry. So the next thing we're going to work on is the ball here. One way of thinking about this is, obviously we got flat planes here, we got a shadow on the flat plane, but what would it look like if, let's say, we were able to kind of squish the ball into flat planes, right? What difference would it make, right? So put a plane here, put a plane here up, it's falling down, all right. But you get the idea that what we want to do is we want to try to simplify things in our own mind, and trying to think of planes on spherical objects is oftentimes a good idea. So let's think a little bit more about what it means to turn things into flat planes, even though they're not really flat planes. So we take, this object that we have here, how do we view these as flat planes? Well, what we can do is, we know that there's an oval at the top here, right? We remember that. But what if we turn that oval into kind of flat spots, right? Flat, 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 and flat. So we're kind of flattening out this oval here. If that makes any sense. And we'll put in the sides. And the reason that helps us is, not only does it help in terms of maybe some of the drawing problems we have, but we can also think of it in terms of where are the transitions as far as the darks to the mid values, to a little bit lighter. This here is the lightest, and then we know that the shadow is going this way. All right, so what would happen if we tried to do the same thing with a ball? So we'll start our ball right here. So we know that our ball is a little bit like a sphere, like a tube, that there are some similarities. We got lines that kind of go like that. Lines that kind of go like that, and we have, like, if you were looking at the equator of a globe, what would it do? It would kind of go like that. This one might be the middle, and these are, I forget the name of the lines, the longitudinal lines, I think, something like that. Makes any sense. So we can think of these as kind of like a little, like they're all kind of cubes in some ways. Okay, and so this has a shadow that goes kind of like that. And these are, so this is going to be a really dark shadow. And then these are somewhat lighter than the shadow. It just happens to be that we got a dark shadow. It's going to be somewhat dark. It's going to be somewhat dark. This one here might be a little bit lighter. This one here might be a little lighter because the light is still coming down. So the main light is coming from the side this way, but there's still a little bit of, skylight that's coming down this way. And then this is going to be really pretty light right here and right here, and then right here. These are all going to be pretty light. This one's going to be a tiny bit darker. This one may be a tiny bit darker. This one's going to be quite a bit darker. So what you see here is kind of a cross section. Like if you looked at the moon or whatever, it would be, the moon would be kind of like a half moon like this, So we can think of, when we look at the moon, sometimes we see the moon kind of like that, right? So in this case, it would be the dark side would be right here, right? And we got the faces on the moon, so to speak. All right. So anyway, you got my idea. So the next thing we're going to work on is composition. So the idea is basically to set up a few different kind of compositional structures in your picture. And one good thing about still life is that you can move the objects around. So in this case, I have the ball in the middle. You know, pretty much you want your subject to be in the middle. And one thing that's kind of interesting about this composition is that the shadow is actually going onto the cube. And then we have this sort of bigger thing in the background that's being kind of hidden by the ball a little bit. But, you know, I mean, it'd be a different composition if, let's say, you know, we stacked all three things like that on top of each other. That would definitely be, you know, something that maybe some of the modern artists would enjoy having. Let's see, how would that look? Yeah, something like that. So all three on top of each other. To me, it looks a little surrealist. Another composition might be just putting this way off kind of to the side and really focusing on maybe just the ball, or maybe, so now we definitely see like this nice shadow for the ball. And the cube is a little bit more in the background. So I'll show you what it looks like to work on compositional sketches. So when it comes to these kinds of sketches, you really can't go wrong by doing a lot of them. I mean, the more you do, the more you're going to get a sense of really what the composition is, and you'll figure out like a lot of problems kind of as you're doing them. So I'm just going to start with kind of like the square of what my picture is going to be. So maybe I want it to be kind of high up and down. And I'm going to put in the basic perspective as I always do, which is maybe going to be right up here. And I'm going to put in the outside of the box. And I know that the cylinder is going to be right here. So in this case, I'm not worrying too much about the exactitude of perspective. I'm just more worrying about, well, how do these three things kind of fit together? It's really supposed to be quick. These kinds of things are supposed to be quick, quick, quick. So we got a little bit of light coming up. So that's my first one right there. All right, let's try another one. And what we'll do is we'll just move the boxes around. We'll move things around. Okay, so what if we put this way on the other side? And so it's kind of like the ball's right in the middle again. But, well, let's try putting the cube in the middle, see what the difference is. And the ball way back there. So now the ball is no longer the star of the show. And we will, again, put in our picture frame. Maybe we'll do it sideways this way, so it's sort of longer. And we'll put in the perspective of the box, so we know the box goes out this way with the walls. Maybe we'll cut off sort of the edge of the box, but we'll still have the bottom here. Okay, so that's number 2. And you can kind of see how I would do maybe a couple more of those, 3 or 4, you know, see, and then we pick the composition that we really like. And so now we're going to go on to doing still lifes. So I've got an onion here, and I actually cut little parts of it, and the reason for cutting it was just to give a sense of a flat plane. Okay, so I have a flat plane right here. I have a kind of a flat plane right here. I mean, they're not perfectly flat. And this is in the camera, you might be overloaded with light, but this is going to be one smooth surface, right? So you're not going to want to gradient, you just want to keep it pretty much the same light throughout. Whereas like over on this side, from here to here, you're going to see it lighter here, and then it's going to get darker down on the edge. There might be a little light that's reflected off of the wood here and then back up, right? So right about there, you might get a tiny little bit of a reflection that goes right back up into, from the wood into the onion. Anyway, let's just see how it goes. All right, so now we're going to try the onion. Here it goes. So now the third thing we're going to work on is a human figure. And the idea around this is not to get into the exact anatomy of the human body, but rather to see the figure as just a bunch of shapes, simplified shapes like everything else. So actually, with this little model, this could even be more simple. This could be just, you know, a rectangle here, a rectangle here. You could even draw the head as a rectangle. What I kind of like about these guys is that you can pose them to one degree or another. Let's see if we can get them running a little bit. So anyway, what I do is I try to get a fast, sketchy thing, right? Fast figure drawing first, and then I try to like put in more details, and then eventually the shadows and so on. Now, one thing is, from this perspective, the arm here is going to be foreshortened. In other words, from a perspective standpoint, this hand is going to be quite big in relationship to everything else because it's pointing towards the camera. And obviously we have to put everything in perspective in terms of the human figure, just like everything else. This is like almost can't see the hand at all in this position. But we put it out like that. A little bit, yeah. Not too bad. All right, here goes. And so the last thing I'm going to work on for this video is reflective surfaces. So with the ball here, you can see the reflection right here. Yeah, so it's light here, but it gets darker here. And then you still see a bit of a shadow even with the reflection. So we'll work on that. So let's see, we're going to work on the shadows here. It's going to be kind of a quick one. Just want to give you some sense of it. So basically we will start putting in the ball here, which is very bright. And then the shadow is just like really like, you can hardly see it at all, but you can actually see it. And we'll go ahead and put in the shadow here. And this is the back of the box right here. So once again, we're kind of putting these things in perspective. This is all kind of dark way back here. And there's that kind of half moon thing, right? Because we know that this is the shape of the ball, right? And we can think of the reflection as basically being kind of like the same thing. So if there's a bit of a shadow going off this way, and there's also a bit going off here. Now this reflection goes behind this guy, all right? So the reflection actually starts a little behind. And the whole thing here is just a little dark. The whole thing's a little dark. But the shadow's pretty dark right here because it kind of touches up against some stuff that aren't quite so reflective. And let's see, I always mess up a little with the shadows. This actually goes down this way a little bit. And this needs to be round. I don't know how round I actually got this thing, but so anyway, Like I said, this is going to be kind of quick. Let's put in the highlights now. So there's a really bright spot right here. You know, it kind of goes like that. And there is a little bit of a bright spot right down here. I think I got this guy too big, actually. I think I got the reflection just a little too big. Got to stand back a little to see for sure. Let's take a look. Messing everything up. Yeah. I think I got the whole thing just a little too wide is what's going on. So you really don't know these things till you step back. When you step back a little bit, you notice the mistakes you made. So there's really only one way of fixing this mistake, which is simply to get rid of some of this shadowy area right over here. And put in some shadowy area right over here. But this still needs to blend together. And we know that the shadow of this ball is actually quite dark. So anyway, shadows are, unless you got, you know, like a perfect mirror, shadows are always darker than your actual object. So this object is really quite light. It's really got a lot of light on it. Whereas, you know, you're barely going to see any of that light on the shadow. Some of it, but not a lot. And that's how you can get realistic looking shadows, just, you know, as a kind of quick thing.